my family of 7 can be really pricey these days. Just going through a drive-through for all of us can cost like 50 bucks, which is why meal planning and eating at home makes so much sense. So in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys 5 delicious family dinners that we've had recently that cost me just under $60 at Walmart. So my plan for today's video is to show you my meal plan, talk you through the 5 dinners that I'm going to make. Then I will show you all the ingredients that I got from Walmart and give you my total price. And then I will show you how to make each of the recipes. A couple quick things to note before we get started. I would call this a fairly frugal meal plan, but this is not one of my like extreme budget meal plans. These aren't my beans and rice meals, so to speak. These 5 dinners are meals that we have on a regular basis. They are favorites, and I feel like they're still pretty frugal. You know, being able to do these 5 dinners for a family of 7 for under $60. I feel like that's still pretty frugal. Now, I've mentioned that we have a family of 7. Something to keep in mind is that our oldest is only 11 years old, so I'm not feeding a bunch of teenagers here. I would not say that these recipes would feed like 7 adults or 7 hungry teenagers, but for our family of 7 with 2 adults and then younger kids, they work great. So like I said, I got everything from Walmart for this meal plan, and I like to do that just because I feel like Walmart is accessible to most people, and so it can be easy for you to make your grocery list based off of mine, and hopefully your prices will be similar, although we all know that prices are going to vary depending on the area you live in. Now, like I said, I spent just under $60 for these 5 meals, but you can probably spend even less if you already have some of these ingredients on hand, or if you shop sales. For the meats that I bought, I like to get them cheaper when I can at Kroger, and so a lot of times that will save me some money. And even some of the other things on my grocery list, a lot of times I can get them a little cheaper on sale or whatever. But for today's video, I just wanted to get everything at the basic Walmart prices so that hopefully it will be similar to the prices that you have. Okay, with all that being said, let me show you the 5 meals that we're gonna make. So here is my meal plan here with my 5 dinners. We are going to be doing 2 meals with chicken, 2 with ground beef, and 1 with smoked sausage. So our chicken meals here are slow cooker white chili. This just really hit the spot for me. I don't know if it's because I'm pregnant or what, but I was like craving the leftovers. It is really delicious. So we're doing this slow cooker white chili. Then we are also going to do white enchiladas. This is another favorite that I love, and all my kids ate it great when I made it this week. We've made it multiple times, so definitely a recipe I love. Then for our 2 ground beef recipes, we are going to be doing 2 kind of classic American meals. I feel like meatloaf and baked potatoes. I only like my mom's meatloaf, to be honest, and this is her recipe, and it's delicious. So we're going to be doing that. And then sloppy joes, once again, my mom's recipe, and potato wedges on the side for that. And then for our 5th meal, this is sausage pasta. This is just a recipe I came up with several years ago now, and it has been a favorite ever since, and we make it pretty often. So those are our 5 dinners. Let's take a look at the groceries that you're going to need. Here is basically everything that you are going to need for these 5 meals. There are 2 ingredients that I don't have here. I will mention those in just a second, but this is everything else. Now, you do want to have some basic pantry ingredients on hand, like spices, some ketchup, mustard, Worcestershire sauce. I also use a couple eggs for the meatloaf that I'm doing, and a little bit of oats. So those basic pantry items you're going to want to have on hand. Everything else is included right here. So let me show you first the meats that we're going to use. I got 3 pounds of ground beef. I just went for their frozen ground beef, which was the cheapest at Walmart at $4.44 a pound. Obviously, it's the fattier kind, but that's fine. I just wanted to get the cheapest one. I can drain off the fat, so it will be fine. Interestingly, I guess they only had 2 available, so they gave me this, which is a little nicer, but they charged me the same. So it was like $13.32, I believe, for the 3 of those. We're gonna do 2 meals with ground beef. So I'm gonna be doing 1.5 pounds for 1 meal, 1.5 pounds for the other. We're gonna be doing meatloaf, and then we're also gonna be doing sloppy joes. Then, as you can see, I threw this in the freezer, so it is currently frozen too. But this smoked sausage, this is 14 ounces, and we will be doing this for 1 meal. And then the chicken breasts we're going to be using for 2 meals. I really just needed about 3 pounds. I got 373 here. Sorry about the dog out there. But yeah, we will be dividing those up kind of just by weight, and I'll be using those for a slow cooker chicken chili and then some white enchiladas. So as you can see, we paid, let's see, $9.59 for the chicken breasts. They were $2.57 a pound. I like it when I can get them cheaper at Kroger when they're on sale, but I wanted to get everything from Walmart today, so that's what we did. And then the smoked sausage was I think it was around $3.70. Can't remember the exact price. So those are the meats for our meals here. So then our produce items, got some spinach. We will not use all the spinach, but about half the bag for our sausage meal. That's going to be our spinach sausage pasta that I like to make. Then 2 onions. You'll get them cheaper if you get a whole, cheaper for the amount if you get a whole big bag, but we just needed 2. Some garlic, just 1 bag of frozen veggies. I just want to decide to go with the enchiladas, so whatever frozen veggie is your favorite. These were just 98 cents. Then the potatoes. Whenever my mom made meatloaf growing up, she would do baked potatoes on the side. So I like to do that too. So we're going to do baked potatoes on the side with those. And then I will have plenty of potatoes left. So I'm going to do potato wedges to go with the sloppy joes. So that's what the potatoes are for. Some cilantro for the soup. If you don't like cilantro, you can just leave that out. Then our dairy things over here, we're going to use about half of this for the soup and have the rest for something else. We're going to be using sour cream in the enchiladas, and then we can use it on the soup too. Monterey Jack cheese, or you can just use mozzarella if you have that on hand, but that's for the enchiladas. Half and half for the soup. And then some of our pantry items here, lots of these diced green chilies, because we're going to use some for enchiladas, and then 2 cans for the soup. That corn is for the soup as well as the Great Northern beans, both cans of that. This little bitty thing of tomato sauce is for, let's see, what is this one for? Oh, our meatloaf. Yeah, I like this kind of meatloaf because it's not sweet, it doesn't have ketchup in it. I'm just not a fan of sweeter meatloaf, so I like that it just has this plain tomato sauce in it. It's not a topping, it's part of the meatloaf. Hamburger buns for our sloppy joes. I just got the most basic ones. This is for our soup. We just toss this in. If you don't have it, you can just put in some ranch dressing, which is honestly what I normally do, but I wanted to follow the recipe this time. Whole wheat spaghetti. I always get the whole wheat for this particular sausage pasta recipe. We just think it tastes a lot better. Now you will pay more for it. It was about $1.50, I believe. And I know like right now pasta's on sale at Kroger this particular week for like 88 cents. So you could just get normal and save a little bit there. But for us, the whole wheat just has a lot better flavor. I ordered regular like Great Value tortillas. These are for the enchiladas. They gave me these because they were out of the Great Value ones. But yeah, that is everything that I got. Now there are 2 more things that are on my grocery list for these 5 meals that you will see if you look at the blog post, and it's included in my total price. And one of those is Parmesan cheese. I just usually have that on hand, so I didn't want to buy more, but that's about $2.50 for the smallest amount at Walmart. So that is included on my list, as well as some chicken broth. I always have chicken broth in the freezer because I just make it from the chicken carcass when I do a whole chicken. So I always have that on hand, but I did include that on the list. So with those things included, all of this was $58 and change. So we hit just under $60 for these 5 meals. The first meal that we're going to start out with is our sausage meal, the sausage and spinach pasta. So I like to get this particular brand of sausage. I'll either do the regular smoked sausage, or sometimes I'll do the turkey sausage if I feel like being a little healthier. Either way, it turns out great. I like to slice them down the middle before I chop them up because I feel like that helps it helps the sausage to get dispersed a little bit better in the pasta once I've mixed everything up. So that's what I'm doing here, just getting all of this chopped up and ready to saute. And I'm also going to be sauteing it with some onions, so I'm just chopping that up. I'm doing a whole onion because this is kind of a small one, and I just love onion. Like, I add onion to as many recipes as I can because I think it adds so much. But if it was like a really big one, I'd probably just do a half. So anyway, getting all that chopped up so that we can saute it. I'm just going to add a little bit of olive oil to my saucepan, and I'll dump those onions in there and the sausage, of course, and we'll just let that saute around a little bit. I like to get the sausage kind of nicely browned on all the sides, and obviously you want to saute that onion till it's sort of
translucent and lightly browned. And then while that is going, I'm going to add in a little bit of crushed red pepper. How much you add just kind of depends on how much spice you want in there. And then on another burner, I'm going to go ahead and get my whole wheat spaghetti cooking. So I already got my water boiling, and I'm just going to dump that in there. You can use another kind of spaghetti, obviously, but we prefer the whole wheat. Now I'm adding some chicken broth to my sausage and onions, and then grabbing some handfuls of spinach and tossing them on there. I usually use about half a bag of spinach. Kind of after the fact, this time I realized I probably didn't use quite enough. It always looks like so much to me, but it really cooks down. So I totally should have dumped a little bit more on there, but that's what I did this time. And then I always add a little bit of milk or cream. This was just milk. I think it's only like a 1/4 cup or something. I'll have to look back at the recipe, but it just adds just that little extra bit of creaminess. It's especially good if you happen to have cream on hand, but I didn't have that this time. And now I'm adding in my cooked pasta. Now at first it is going to look like a lot of pasta, but it will be great once you get things mixed in. So I'm adding a little bit of my Parmesan cheese, and I'm going to mix it up some, and then I will add some more. I just like to add it a little bit at a time. It's kind of a process mixing everything because, yeah, it is a lot of pasta, and the sausage kind of likes to go to the bottom. But man, it turns out so well. It is super delicious, even though that forkful wasn't the best to show you. But here's one of the kids' plates. I had some tomatoes on the side, and here is my plate all served up. This was a delicious meal. Next up is this recipe for slow cooker white chicken chili. So I'm starting out by putting about 1.5 pounds of chicken breasts in my slow cooker and topping it with some ranch dressing mix and then some salt and pepper. I'm also going to add in 2 teaspoons of cumin, 2 teaspoons of oregano, a teaspoon of chili powder, and then also just a little bit of cayenne pepper. I believe the recipe calls for about 1/2 teaspoon. I think I did 1/4. Then I'm adding in some minced garlic as well and 1 chopped onion. You can do less if you're not as big of an onion person, but I love the onion in there, of course. And then 32 ounces of chicken broth. This is homemade, so that's why it's sort of goopy. It means it's really good for you. And then once I have that in, I'm going to add my beans. It's 2 cans of the Great Northern beans. You could do another variety, but I like the white beans in this white chili. Then a can of corn, or of course you could do frozen corn. And then 2 cans of the little green chilies. Once you have all that in there, then you can just add a little bit of cilantro if you have it on hand. It's not essential, but I do think it adds a little bit. And then I'm just stirring it all just a little bit before I get it cooking. Now I cooked mine on high for 3 or 4 hours because that's the time that I had, but the recipe calls for it to be on low for I think like 7 or 8 hours. Either way, it's great. Now I did not show this part, but once it's done, you're going to go ahead and shred the chicken and add your cream cheese and your half and half. So all of that is done here, and this is the finished product. Man, this soup was so good. It turned out so delicious. It made lots of leftovers for us, which I loved. I just really enjoyed it. And I like to top it, if I have the tortilla chips on hand, I'll top it with tortilla chips, some cheese and sour cream, and a little cilantro on top is a really nice addition too. The next meal we're making is our white chicken enchiladas. It only calls for 2 cups of chicken, but I used 2.5 because I had plenty of chicken left over from the package of chicken that I purchased. So this recipe calls for adobo seasoning, but I never have that on hand, and I've realized I like it just as well with some garlic powder, some chili powder, some salt and pepper. So I just do a 1/2 teaspoon each of the first 3 and then just a little pepper. So here's what it looks like with all the seasonings, and then you're just going to add 1 cup of your cheese, mix that all together, and this is going to be the simple filling for your enchiladas. So then I'm going to move over to the stove. I have 3 tablespoons of butter melted, and to that I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of flour and get that all mixed up, and you're going to let that simmer for just like a minute or so before you add 2 cups of chicken broth. Now you'll see when I add the chicken broth, it's homemade chicken broth, and I had it in the freezer earlier and thawed it, so that's why there are some chunks. It was still a little icy, but that is no big deal because obviously it's going to get warmed up here. I'm not bringing it to a boil or anything. I'm just getting it all nicely mixed together. And then I'm adding 1 cup of sour cream. And yeah, you don't want to boil the sour cream, so you can have your stove turned off at this point. And then we're adding 1 can of the green chilies. So this is what it's going to look like at this point. This is perfect, but my kids don't love the chunks of the green chilies. So what I've started to do is just to pour all of that in the blender, and I just blend it up for just, a few seconds so that it's a nice smooth texture, and then it is all ready. So here I have my tortillas out. We're going to use a total of 10 tortillas, and it's around like a 1/3 cup of the mixture on each one. And so I'm just going to roll them all up and kind of smush them so they fit in my 13 by 9, and then I'm going to pour this sauce over top. Now don't worry if it looks really thin. It looks kind of thin now, but it will kind of thicken up in the oven and it will be perfect. So if that makes you worried, don't worry about that. And then we're just going to add our remaining cup or so of cheese to the top. Doesn't it look good? And then we are going to stick it in the oven for 20 to 25 minutes. And at the very end, I like to put it on broil just for like a minute or two. You want to watch it so it doesn't burn, but it just gives it that nice color, makes it look a little extra yummy, I guess. Here are all our plates served up. I just did some green beans. I decided to do the green beans instead of peas because they needed to be used up from the freezer. But don't these look good? This is seriously one of my favorite recipes. It's just kind of one of those like comfort meals. The next dinner that I'm making is Sloppy Joe's. Now, like I said, I bought 3 pounds of ground beef and I've divided them up between my 2 ground beef meals. So this is 1.5 pounds of ground beef. My mom's recipe calls for 2 pounds. The recipe that was like about the same as my mom's that I could find a link to just calls for 1 pound. So I would say you're safe anywhere between 1 to 2 pounds of ground beef, but this is 1.5 pounds. So I'm just seasoning it up with some salt and pepper and plenty of garlic powder and just letting that get nice and browned. I did want to drain it because it had a good bit of grease in there, so I just drained it on some paper towels. It worked okay. Maybe wasn't my best idea, but at least it did get some of the grease out of there. And then I mixed up my sauce. This has mustard, ketchup, water, sugar, apple cider vinegar, and Worcestershire sauce. And you're just going to get your meat all nicely coated in that, and you're just going to let it simmer for like 15 minutes because that will it might thicken up just a little bit, but also it just really lets the flavor soak into the meat, and it's really good. And once you've done that, you are done. You just have to put it on the buns and you've got some delicious Sloppy Joes. I really like this recipe because it's not tomatoey like a lot of other ones. But anyway, okay, so these are the potato wedges that I was intending to make with my Sloppy Joes. I did not get around to making them this week, so I thought I would grab you a picture from my blog so you can at least see them, and I will link the recipe for you if you want to make them as a side. Our last meal is my mom's meatloaf recipe. So this also has the 1.5 pounds of ground beef, and to that I'm adding oats, 2 eggs, which I only had 1 egg, so you'll see what I did for the other one in just a minute. But then I'm also adding about 2 teaspoons of salt and a little bit of pepper, and then I'm adding 8 ounces of just plain basic tomato sauce. And then this is a flax egg, which is an egg substitute, and I figured that would work fine because the eggs are just kind of there to hold everything together. And then you're also supposed to add like 1/4 cup of onion, but I guess I totally forgot, or else I didn't have time or something. I don't know. But anyways, it turned out great as it was. But you just press it all into a baking dish, and you're gonna bake this in the oven at 350 for 1 hour. So along with this, I like to put in my baked potatoes at the same time because they usually take about an hour as well. So I like to obviously poke holes in them and then just drizzle them with a little bit of olive oil and a little bit of salt, and that makes the skins extra yummy and a little crispy. So here are my potatoes and my meatloaf as they came out of the oven. Turned out super well. This is just a very homey meal for me that I grew up with.
Okay, you guys, that is it for today's video. As always, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate every comment and every like that you give. It really helps out my channel. Let me know what you think about this meal plan. If you make one or all of the recipes, I would love to hear about it. If you are looking for more meal ideas, I'm going to link my playlist of meal ideas as well as another Walmart meal plan video that I did a few months back in case you missed that one. I hope you have a really great week, and I will see you again soon in my next video.